What happens when the darkness ends? That is the question millions of people around the world are quietly asking right now. Not loudly, not in mainstream conversations, but in the late hours of the night, in the quiet moments between sleep and waking, in the persistent inner sense that something enormous is approaching, and that what comes after it matters more than the event itself. The 3 days of darkness. This idea has appeared in spiritual traditions, prophetic teachings, and cosmic transmissions across cultures and centuries. Ancient texts, indigenous prophecies, channeled messages from beings described as existing beyond ordinary human perception. Again and again, across traditions that had no contact with one another, the same essential description emerges. A period of profound darkness, a pause in the ordinary rhythm of the world, a moment between what was and what comes next. But almost no one is talking about what comes after. The Pleiadians want to change that today, because in their understanding, the 3 days of darkness is not the destination. It is a threshold, a doorway, a moment of collective reset that creates conditions on Earth, within the human energy field and within the consciousness of every soul alive, that did not previously exist. And what those conditions make possible is something the Pleiadians describe as the most extraordinary chapter in the history of human consciousness. Stay with this all the way to the end, because what comes last is what they most want you to carry forward. Part O and E, what the 3 days of darkness actually is. Before we can speak about what comes after, the Pleiadians want to address something directly. Many people, when they first encounter the idea of 3 days of darkness, experience a reaction of fear. The word darkness carries weight. It carries association with loss, with threat, with the unknown. And in a world that has been organized for a very long time around the suppression of exactly this kind of uncertainty, the idea of 3 days without ordinary light, without the familiar rhythms of a world most people have built their entire sense of security around, can feel deeply threatening. The Pleiadians say, this fear is understandable, and it is also, in the most important sense, unnecessary. Because the 3 days of darkness, in their understanding, is not a punishment. It is not a catastrophe. It is not a judgment descended from above upon a humanity that has failed some cosmic standard. It is a reset. Think of it this way. When a system that has been running for a very long time, carrying the accumulated weight of everything it has processed, everything that has passed through it, everything it has held and stored and never quite been able to fully release, when that system needs to reorganize itself at a fundamental level, sometimes the most efficient path is a complete pause. A moment of stillness so deep that the old patterns finally lose their momentum. A darkness so thorough that the noise of what was can finally go quiet enough for what is coming to be heard. This, the Pleiadians say, is what the 3 days of darkness represents. Not the end of anything, but the pause before the beginning. The silence before the most important sound. The darkness before a dawn unlike any that has come before. In many spiritual traditions, this kind of threshold experience is not feared but honored, because it is understood for what it actually is. Not a removal of light, but the preparation for a light that could not have arrived without it. Part TWO. What happens within you during the darkness? The Pleiadians describe the 3 days of darkness not primarily as an external event, but as an internal one. Yes, there are descriptions in many traditions of physical darkness, of a world grown quiet and still in ways that cannot be explained by ordinary atmospheric conditions, of a pause in the usual rhythms of nature that signals something has shifted at a level deeper than the physical. But the Pleiadians emphasize that the most significant thing happening during these 3 days is not what is occurring outside. It is what is occurring within. Within the human energy system, they say the 3 days of darkness function as what might be called a deep integration period. All of the energetic shifts that have been building, the rising frequencies, the dissolving of old patterns, the gradual awakening of capacities that the lower frequency environment had kept dormant, all of this reaches a point of critical mass. And in the stillness of the darkness, with the ordinary noise and distraction of the world temporarily suspended, the integration that has been happening gradually and partially finally completes itself. Many spiritual traditions describe moments of profound inner darkness as necessary precursors to genuine transformation. The dark night of the soul, the void before creation, the seed in the earth before the first green shoot pushes upward toward light. These are not descriptions of failure or loss. They are descriptions of the most important phase in any genuine transformation. The phase where the old self has released enough of its grip that the new self has room to emerge. But the new self has not yet fully arrived. The in-between place. The threshold. The 3 days of darkness, in the Pleiadian understanding, is this threshold experience at a collective rather than individual level. Not one person moving through their dark night, but an entire civilization moving through it simultaneously. And what emerges on the other side, what the Pleiadians describe with what can only be called joy, is what we are about to explore. Part 3. The first thing that changes. The lifting of the veil. When the light returns after the 3 days of darkness, the Pleiadians say it does not return the same way it left. It returns differently, with a quality, a frequency, a depth of presence that it did not carry before. Because what the darkness has done, in the deep stillness of those 3 days, is cleared the interference, the static, the accumulated energetic noise of thousands of years of human consciousness operating under conditions of fear and separation and forgetting. This clearing, the Pleiadians describe as the lifting of the veil. The veil, in their teachings, is not a physical thing. It is not a literal barrier between dimensions that can be measured by instruments. It is a condition of consciousness, a state of reduced perception that human beings have been operating within for so long that most have forgotten there is any other way to see. In this veiled state, the natural capacities of human consciousness, the ability to perceive directly, to know without reasoning, to sense the deeper currents of reality that run beneath the surface of ordinary experience, are significantly diminished, not eliminated, but compressed, muffled, like trying to hear music through walls that were never meant to be there. When the veil lifts after the 3 days of darkness, the Pleiadians describe something that many who have had glimpses of it in meditation or in moments of unusual clarity will recognize. A quality of direct perception that does not require the mediation of ordinary thought. A knowing that arrives whole rather than being assembled piece by piece from separate facts. In practical terms, what this means for a human being waking up on the other side of the 3 days of darkness is something like this. The world feels different, not in a dramatic or frightening way, but in a quiet, pervasive way that is immediately recognizable as more real than what came before. More present, more alive, more directly available to genuine experience. And the people in that world feel different too. Not like strangers, like something closer. Something that has always been there beneath the surface of ordinary interaction, finally visible. Part 4. The second change. A new kind of knowing. One of the most consistent descriptions that emerges from many spiritual traditions speaking about what becomes available after a significant threshold like the 3 days of darkness is a fundamental change in the nature of human knowing. Right now, most human knowledge operates through a particular process. Information is gathered through the senses, is processed by the thinking mind. It is organized into concepts, compared with existing beliefs, filtered through personal history and cultural conditioning, and eventually assembled into something called understanding. This process works. It has produced genuine knowledge. It has allowed human civilization to develop in extraordinary ways. But it is also slow, is partial. It is subject to all the distortions that come with filtering experience through the lens of a conditioned, fearful, separation-organized mind. What the Pleiadians describe as becoming available after the 3 days of darkness is not a replacement for this process, but in addition to it. Restoration of capacities that human consciousness possessed before the veil descended and that have been largely inaccessible ever since. They describe this as direct knowing, the ability to perceive truth directly, without the intermediary of the ordinary thinking process. Not guessing, not intuiting in the limited sense that most people experience intuition as a vague feeling, unreliable and easily overridden by reason, but genuine direct perception, as clear and verifiable as sight. Many people who have had extraordinary moments of clarity, in deep meditation, in moments of profound love, in the strange lucidity that sometimes accompanies great grief or great joy, have touched the edges of this capacity. They know what it feels like to suddenly understand something completely without being able to explain how or why. They know the quality of a knowing that arrives whole. After the 3 days of darkness, in the Pleiadian description, this quality of knowing becomes not an exceptional experience available only in rare moments, but the baseline, the normal condition of an awakened human consciousness finally operating at its natural frequency. Part 5. The third change. What becomes possible between people. Perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of what the Pleiadians describe in the aftermath of the 3 days of darkness is what becomes possible between human beings. Right now, genuine human connection, the kind that actually reaches what is real in another person, that creates genuine understanding rather than the performance of it, is rare. Not because people do not want it. Most people want it desperately, but because the conditions under which human consciousness has been operating make it genuinely difficult. The veil that limits individual perception also limits the ability to truly perceive another person. The fear that organizes individual consciousness also organizes interpersonal encounter. The separation that defines the internal experience of most human beings also defines their experience of each other. When the veil lifts, when the frequency of the collective human field rises to the level that the 3 days of darkness makes possible, something changes in the fundamental nature of human encounter. The Pleiadians describe it as a change in the quality of recognition. The sense of seeing and being genuinely seen that most people experience only in the rarest and most precious moments of their lives becomes, gradually, the ordinary quality of human interaction. This does not mean all conflict dissolves overnight. It does not mean all misunderstanding becomes impossible. But the foundation from which human beings encounter one another shifts. From the defensive, self-protective, fear-organized foundation that has generated so much of human history's pain and conflict, towards something that the Pleiadians say is the natural state of human consciousness at its intended frequency. A foundation of genuine recognition, of actual care, of the simple, profound, world-changing act of truly seeing another person and allowing yourself to be truly seen by them. Part SIX. What the Pleiadians want you to know right now. The Pleiadians close this transmission with something that is not about the 3 days of darkness itself. It is about what you do between now and then. Because the shift in consciousness that the 3 days of darkness makes possible at a collective level is not something that simply happens to passive recipients. It is something that awakened souls are actively preparing, right now, through the choices they make in their daily lives. Every time you choose presence over distraction, you are preparing the inner ground for what comes after. Every time you choose honesty over comfort, you are raising the frequency of your inner environment. Every time you meet another person with genuine curiosity rather than reflexive judgment, you are practicing the quality of perception that will define the world after the darkness. Every time you sit in stillness, and allow the deeper knowing beneath ordinary thought to become available. You are developing the capacity that will be the natural baseline of human consciousness when the veil has lifted. The 3 days of darkness is not something you wait for. It is something you grow toward. And the soul who arrives at that threshold, having genuinely prepared, having done the quiet, consistent, often invisible work of raising their own frequency, will experience the return of light not as something foreign or overwhelming, but as a homecoming, as the arrival of something they have been moving toward their entire lives. The Pleiadians say this clearly and directly. The darkness is not what you think it is, and the light that comes after it is more extraordinary than you have yet been able to imagine. But you can begin to imagine it now, not as fantasy, not as wishful thinking, but as the accurate perception of what is genuinely coming, of what you, right now, in this ordinary moment, watching this transmission, are part of bringing into being. You are not waiting for the light. You are the light that is already rising. And the world that comes after the darkness is being shaped, right now, by the quality of what you choose to become before it arrives. Closing. If this message found you today, something in you already knows what to do with it. Not to fear what is coming. Not to wait passively for events to unfold, but to participate, to prepare, to continue the quiet, daily, deeply meaningful work of becoming someone who can genuinely receive what the light, when it returns, will carry. Leave a comment below and tell us, when you hear about the 3 days of darkness, what is the feeling that arises in you? Fear? Curiosity? A sense of recognition that you have known about this moment for longer than you can explain? Your words help others feel less alone in what they are sensing. And in a moment like this one, that matters more than it might seem. Share this with someone who is asking the same questions you are asking. The people who are drawn to a message like this are often looking for each other without knowing it. Take what resonates. Leave what does not. And trust yourself completely to know the difference. With love from the Pleiadians and from all of us here at Lemora Awakening. The darkness is coming, and the light that follows it will change everything. This content is offered for spiritual reflection, symbolic interpretation, and personal insight only. It is not presented as scientific fact, medical advice, or a prediction of real-world events. The narration in this video is generated using artificial intelligence voice technology. Please use your own discernment and personal judgment when engaging with this material.